Welcome to episode 5. I'm joined by my distinguished co-host, James Tanner, and we're going to look at another end-of-line situation from my family. And this is sight unseen for James Tanner, so I'm going to introduce it to him as I introduced it to you. And I've had some thoughts on this in the past, and it's been a while, so it'll be great to have James's opinions on where to go next. Okay, so the ancestor is Dorcas Perry. Let me just switch over to the subway map for this one. You can see the timeline for her. So if I switch to state mode, it's mostly New York. So she's mostly in New York, and then down in Illinois. She's got one land assessment record that's back in New York, but then mostly Illinois. So the question is, who are her parents? And there's nothing on the tree. The one source that I have is her death record mentions that she was born in Lorain, New York. And I think that's misspelled. It should be 2 R's. That's kind of as much as I know about her birthplace, 1807, Lorain, New York. I haven't seen anything that names her parents. And so, maybe one idea is to look for all the potential fathers in Lorain, New York. It's this town that started right at the time of her birth, basically. But I'm open to whatever you think, James. So that's the case.
Well, okay. So the first thing you do when you first look at one of these is to go to the person. Okay, so we'll go back to the details on the person.
Okay.
And look down at the family. She says she was married to Hanford Hosselton.
Yep.
1832. Just click down. She looks like she's got at least 3 husbands listed here.
That's right. Yeah.
One
the Hosselton one is my line, and then I think 2
32, 60, no children, and then another one perhaps doesn't have a marriage event, but it has a name.
Yeah.
She dies in 1897 at 90 years old. Is that what it was saying on the death record? Yeah, and now we're going to look at each of the children just click on them and see what they say.
Okay. So open up these new tabs maybe.
So she's born in Lyme, Jefferson, New York. And then she's buried in Illinois. Okay. Then let's go to the next child. That's another place. Cheming, New York, and supposedly buried in Missouri. Okay, well, we've got a really spread out family here. Another one, and this one, Sandy Creek, Oswego. Okay.
So a little bit spread around. Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is starting to say, well, okay, let's plot this on a map and look and see where all these places are. Go to the next one and we'll see. Now it's just New York. That doesn't help us a whole lot at all. And the last one on the line was even nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
apparently the second to last one was born after the father's
death. Yeah. Okay, so that's
that one.
Not
so
likely.
Yeah. If you could see this in that county view too. I mean, it's like all these different counties in New York. No kind of steady place.
Yeah, there's always the ultimate argument is even possible, physically possible. Obviously, if at least one of them, and perhaps 2, were born after the father died, then that's not possible. That's not humanly possible. That someone could move would depend on the distances and the directions. So let's take each one of those cities, Chemung, Oswego, all that, and put all that onto a Google Maps.
Okay, I have this new feature to show you because we do this a lot. So this is map the places. So I'm going to click this link to open up these places in a Google map.
Oh, wow.
So this is
this is about an hour.
Yeah. So I hope this is helpful. Yeah. So, and it's in the order that they appear. So it's kind of messy, but what I'll just do is kind of X out the Illinois ones for now. And we'll just keep the New York ones.
Not
you
start to
this
is see. Like, no.
Washington County was, what was Washington County? That was Land assessment. Yeah, that's pretty far away, right?
This is like, no.
So too far already, huh?
Well, look at the date. Okay, so we'll go back and just kind of think of terms of the dates here.
Yeah.
And the first date of let's say the marriage date or whatever date we have for Dorcas, we'll go back to Dorcas.
Okay, let's go back to Dorcas.
And look at her. Marriage is in 1832. No place listed. But she's supposedly born in, let's go up and see if we have a.
And that's the Lorraine, Jefferson County.
Lorraine, Jefferson. Yeah, that Jefferson one up there. Yeah, and ends up in Illinois. Well, the problem is there's no pattern to this. There's nothing that ties this in, and this is, well, her birth is in 1807. Let's kind of go a bench line here. Go up to a tab and look up Erie Canal.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, and Erie Canal was built across New York.
The date of first use, 1821?
21.
Yeah.
And it was completed until 1825. Okay, so where do those children fall? Let's look and see the children's. Go with her family, yeah, because we can see.
Okay, yeah, so we've got 1840, 43, 45. That's a residence.
There's a 5-year difference there.
Yeah. So you're feeling like too messy already. I mean, it's and maybe I should have said too, I think it was a Bible record transcript where we have this information from. We found an old Bible with the following: Asael Hazelton married Marmory, child Hanford, married Dorcas, and then the children are listed: Margaret, James, Harriet, Emery, Francis.
Yeah, but there's no dates and there's no dates. Places.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's look at the individuals. I just want to see start for the children. How many sources? What are we saying? Looking at sources for these people.
16, 19.
Well, they're kind of, yeah, we've got some time in there.
14, 1. Yeah, those last two are pretty.
No, they're just.
It's the family Bible.
Oh, they're just names.
Transcript. Yeah, they're just names.
Those are just names.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we know where these people were? A lot of it's just guesswork. But let's see. I guess we have to know if all of this moving around made some sense. The difficulty of traveling back in that time was just enormous, especially in Western New York or even Central New York. There were no roads. We're not talking about roads. We're talking about people living out in almost the wilderness here.
Yeah. Okay.
The reason I brought up the Erie Canal is because they're on the Canandaigua Road, not on the Erie Canal.
Yeah, they're up and down, right? Instead of across.
Yeah, but they're up and down. And that, because obviously the settlement patterns followed the roads. And so one of the things I would check real quick is when these counties were created. So the first one we have listed is Chemung.
Oh, yeah, Jefferson too, if we could change that one. Jefferson. Maybe I'll go ahead and just open these in new links here. Load. So
let me kind of explain what I'm doing is you have to establish a baseline. There's no way you open this kind of thing up, even if been in my family tree for years. Well, the answer is, have you gone through this kind of analysis with what's there? And if there would be some different records that would be attached to sources. First of all, we would support this with land and property records. We would support it with probate records. We would support it with all the different kinds of standardized records that would be claimed. In this part of the country, I'm thinking that it was formed, Oswego formed in 1816.
Yeah. Okay. That one we're okay. Chemung, 1836. So that's pretty late for.
Well, look and see where it says who was there. See that? Well, that's possible.
1840. Yeah, right after. Huh?
Yeah, but let's go back to Oswego. Click on Oswego and see where Oswego is. Clear up the north.
Right up in that corner. Yeah.
And then the next county, which is the Chemung County, way down there.
Way down there.
Why would they do that?
Yeah. Great question.
You have to ask the question. I mean, you have to think if these people were farmers, were they tradesmen? Why would they have moved? What was the incentive here to move? Because we always get back to, when the baby was born, the mother was there. So
Right.
why was the mother moving from north to south and back and forth in that time period when movement was extraordinarily difficult?
Yeah. Jefferson's closer. That one's,
yeah, but
yeah,
they're back up again.
they're back up again. Yeah.
That's a long way, folks.
It's a long way.
I mean, we're not just talking picking up and driving into a new city. We're talking about traveling across country by wagon
Mm-hmm.
on a wagon road. And that's the reason I checked the Erie Canal, because to see if any of this movement corresponded to the east-west movement on the canal, which was the major form of transportation from eastern to western New York during that time period. And the Canandaigua Road was the other, because that road was established. You want to look that up, because that's an important feature there, because they start out on that.
Yeah. Let's see.
You don't want the traffic condition. Put history. So Canandaigua was established as a village in 1815. So all this was brand new. I mean, this was like
they were right on the verge of.
These are cutting this out of the trees, and so why?
Yeah.
It took a considerable period of time to get established with a farm in those days, because of the trees. So you had to cut down all the trees, and then you had to burn out the stumps, and then you had to pull out anything else that was in there. And then you could start to plow the ground.
So they're busy. Yeah, this is okay.
Okay, so the first level of analysis here is that, notwithstanding the Bible, which may or may not be represented by the individuals here, first issue is there's really a lot of work that needs to be done on this particular family before we get to the point where you have any comfort that you can, move back a generation.
Okay. So even if we feel comfortable about that Dorcas Perry record, the death record saying she was born in 1807, Jefferson County, you would clean up her family first before moving back to her parents.
Yeah, you need a proper foundation for moving back.
Okay.
You can't have I'm not sure all this is correct kind of thing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons is that using the children as the basis for doing the research to move back one generation is very important, because the children may record their grandparents at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're always looking for things like that Bible record.
Good. Okay. Well, then.
Okay. So let's go back to Dorcas, and let's focus on her for just a little while here. So let's look at the sources. That's our our second or whatever step. 1850 census, Dorcas Slate.
Yeah, I mean, here she's already 43 years old, right? And this is our first.
Yeah, and she's already in, and let's see, there's some Slate children and a Francis and Emery. Now, who are the Francis and Emery?
Well, so they're the Francis and Emery Hazelton.
Okay, so the husband must have died fairly.
Yeah, we have him as dying in 43, I think it was. So kind of right at the time of Francis.
And some of these kids, yeah, but then we have two children supposedly listed after he died.
Mm-hmm.
So they may either be the children of the second husband, or they're not real.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Francis and Emery we have as second and third. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of them dies the same year. It's the second child dies the same year as the husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Or third child, yeah. But there's a big difference. Now, look, you've got a Marietta. Let's go back to Marietta. You've got Marietta, and you have 7 years before the second child is born.
Yeah, so maybe if James and Margaret aren't children, or maybe they were born in that window between.
Yeah, it could be. It could be they're actually in that between Marietta and Emery. They would fit, but. So let's go back to Dorcas's sources. Don't say that too fast.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so 18.
That's fine. I mean,
50. Okay. Yep.
Census record's a census record, and that's a land record.
And different county by far. This is Steuben County, pretty far away. but 56. So
what's she supposed to be doing?
Land assessment. Must be the second.
Oh, here's Perry. It was back.
You saw it?
See, there's a Perry. Oh, that's Solomon Perry. Okay. Well, let's see what are the headings here. What are we? We're just A, B, C, D.
A, B, C, D. Okay.
Okay, so they're just putting first names in by alphabet, and then they're putting all the.
Okay, so let me jump over here to. Oh yeah,
that's weird. I've never seen that. That's really kind of
unusual. Pretty interesting, huh? Yeah, just helps you scan down to the D's. There's Dorcas Perry.
Yeah. May. Kinney.
Grantee's name, Marianne Kinney.
Go up and see the grantee, and let's the next column over. Oh, that's just the book and page. Okay. Library's page. This book.
Okay.
So this is an index to the actual record. So someone needed to go look further and find the actual transaction record. What's the first thing we're going to try to do is we have a book and page number for a deed or some kind of transfer document. And let's see if they actually have the document. Let's go back to sources and see if she's got a document someplace.
Yeah, good catch. Different county now. So is Dorcas Perry a common enough name that?
Well, let's do a quick search on family search. Just put in Dorcas Perry and see how many people we come up with. 692,000.
Yeah, quite a few.
We've got them in Minnesota, North Carolina, Newfoundland.
I check the box. 316.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not the fact that someone shows up with a name in Dorcas Perry in a land deed with no other identifying information does not indicate that this is the same person, especially if the places aren't consistent. Okay, so we need to do more research. And the question here is, this is the 1800s. This deed is 1856. And the question is, why is she transferring property? The law back then was that the wife didn't own anything unless she was transferring that's the reason looking at the deed is so important, because if it's what's called a disclaimer deed, that would mean she was disclaiming her interest in the property because her husband had transferred the property.
Okay.
And so it would tell who the husband was.
Okay, that'd be great.
And that would tell you instantly, upon finding the actual deed, that you would be able to know what that was. Let's see if this tells us. Let's look at the deed list again. I think we went through all the columns, so I don't think it told us a lot of information.
Yeah, and here's the other one that's in Washington County.
Yeah.
Okay, so
let's look at that one and see. Dorcas Perry. Let's go across and see what there's. No, it's just all this is just an index.
Okay, page 83,
and it gives you a date, but it does and a page. So you have the exact information you need to go to the land record, and this is land record 1630. Let's actually look. Well, this is all an index, so look at the whole record. Click on the little box in the left-hand side. Yeah, go up to the top and
do that
of the land record. Now here's all the deeds. So what we do is we look for the exact date, then we go to the deeds, and we should be able to just go to the page to get that deed. We won't do that right now.
Okay.
But let's assume a couple of things. As we're doing this, as we look at that, the question that immediately comes to mind is, what kind of deed was it? If the only kind of deed that a woman would have signed, it was possible for a woman to own land in her own name. It was just not very common.
Okay.
And the most common deed where a woman shows up is when she signs a disclaimer deed. And the disclaimer deed is one that says that this person, this married lady, her husband has transferred property, and she is signing a deed that says that she has no interest in the transfer. Here's the reason for that. And it's important to understand that because it gives you the context. The woman comes into the marriage, and immediately when she got married in that time period, everything was in the name of the husband. The husband is the sole property owner for the marital community. But when the woman comes in, she brings with her what's called her dower interest. And the dower interest, depending on the state, is usually about a third. So she owns 1/3 of all the husband's property, sort of in expectation. So when he dies, she, by right, could inherit 1/3 of the property. But if the husband sells the property, so let's suppose the husband sells the property, she has to sign a quitclaim deed, in a sense, which is called a disclaimer deed, that she relinquishes her right to the property. What happens if she doesn't sell that? Well, if the husband sells the property during coverture, which is the legal term for the marital community, then the husband's property, the title to the property, is encumbered by the wife's dower interest. She can come back years later and enforce that interest and force the property to be sold that she can get her 1/3 from it.
Okay.
Or take it back.
That's what, yeah.
And so that's the legal process that's going on here. And if she's signing these deeds in those different places, we really want to know if they're all the same husband.
Yeah. Okay.
And if that's the same person we're talking about, not just somebody that happens to have that name.
Makes sense. Okay.
Because James, do we have out of context like this, all that we're seeing is that this person has the same name as
same state in a very large state. Yeah. Okay.
Right now, before we do anything else, go back to Dorcas. Keep this one and go back to Dorcas and see where she was in 1856.
All right. We think she was in
Washington County.
Yeah, and this point, it's reciprocal, I guess, or tautological, because we're looking at this record. So 1856 is what we're looking at, but yeah, and possibly she was just in Illinois, and this is like a straight line that. Okay, so all right, so we went down the path of looking for this New York deed record, right, James? But we realized, wait, we've got an 1850 census showing her in Illinois, and then 1860 in Illinois. So why are we even bothering looking in between that decade in New York? We just wouldn't expect her to be there. And so that's just another Dorcas Perry. Those records were accidentally attached. And so now we've got a much cleaner line when we've detached those erroneous deed records.
And another thing that it affects is the last two children. We have to assume that they were born from the point, some point in time between 1843 when the first husband died and 1860. There's a 7-year period in there, and that second period is in Illinois. So she moved to Illinois at some point. So when was the third child born?
So we think Francis. He was born there.
That's supposed to be in New York in 43, and that's the same year as the husband is supposed to have died. So basically, between 1843 and whenever the marriage is in 60, so at least by 60 she's in. So the last two are the ones that don't have any location or actual dates, and no really sources.
And let's see, we said she was
the Bible source.
50.
Yeah, we have names, but that's all.
Okay, yeah. And I was going to say her 50 census record was with Gideon, and so I think this, Gideon's the second husband, not the third. So we could, his marriage would be.
There's a problem there too, because with the 1850 census, then why would she have been married to McFarland? So Slate had to occur before, even though it's not listed chronologically there because there's no date. So it has to be before 1850.
So would you go put a marriage range in there? Because, here they are together in 1850. So she would have been married, sometime between 1843 or 45 and 50.
Yeah.
Would you do a marriage range there?
Yes. That gives you a range.
Okay. So let's get.
You can just put before 1850, which should be helpful.
Yeah, that's good thought. Before 1850.
That's all we don't know. Well, we have a place. No, we don't have a place for the marriage. No, we have.
And that's nice. It puts them in order there.
Not state. We don't have
a place. Yeah, we don't have a place.
We probably could guess that it's somewhere near DeKalb or however they say that in Illinois.
Yeah, that's probably right. I mean, yeah, and I guess it'd be worth looking at him. Was he in DeKalb all this time, or was he? Yeah, where was he? I mean, we've got a big range here to figure out.
Yeah, his dates show up in DeKalb. Okay. Well, we've looked at all these the basic facts here, and what I think is going on is obviously this needs a whole lot of research. And if the goal of the research is to find her parents, all of this information is going to be pertinent. We just need to make sure that the dates, the places, the timing, and where these people were, because we need to narrow it down. We can't just keep looking at a scattering of different locations across the state of New York and things like that without having some specific focus point. So we get to the point where if her birth is in Lorain, Jefferson County, New York, and then if we come back and revisit this, we would focus on that place. We'd also spend some time going through the sources again in light of the fact that we have a benchmark with the 1850 census, deciding how we're going to determine whether or not all of the children have verifiable birth records. Now, the problem with the Bible record is that children may have only been born and died very early, like they're 1 or 2 years old or whatever. Good point. They would be very difficult to find in this time period. Okay.
All right. Thanks for taking a look at this, James.
Yeah, I think we look forward to next time, and maybe we'll come back and visit it, or maybe we'll take on some other really strange thing.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.